Today on Upfront, a push for more changes to welfare in Wisconsin. Governor Walker wants to see a package of 10 reform bills passed by March. Next on Upfront, Republican Assembly Majority Leader Jim Steineke and Democratic Representative Lisa Subeck debate the need for the measures. Then, retiring Milwaukee Police Chief Ed Flynn.
And it's time. Time to say thank you. Time to say goodbye.
What went right and what went wrong on his watch. And Foxconn will need 7 million gallons from Lake Michigan daily. Today, the impact on the lake and questions about what will be in the water that's returned.
Covering the issues important to Wisconsin. This is Upfront with Mike Goucher.
Hello again, everyone, and welcome to Upfront. Wisconsin is once again poised to lead the nation in welfare reform. Governor Walker and legislative Republicans have 10 bills in a welfare overhaul package. They include a plan to increase the work requirement for able-bodied adults receiving food stamps. Walker joined the original welfare reformer, former Governor Tommy Thompson, at stops around the state Friday to sell the bills. At a public hearing last week, opponents said the bills will create new hurdles for people on public assistance. But Republicans say the state needs workers and the measures will help create job opportunities for people. Talking more about this now with Republican Assembly Majority Leader Jim Steineke of Kaukauna and Democratic Representative Lisa Subeck of Madison. Thanks to both of you for being with us today. I'll begin with you, Representative Steineke, and I was looking at some of the bills that are being talked about, increasing the work requirement from 20 to 30 hours for food stamps, expanding eligibility requirements for food stamps, child care, photo ID if you're going to use your food stamps to buy food, and drug testing for people who want access to public housing. Why do we need these kinds of changes?
Well, and I appreciate the question, Mike, and I appreciate you having us here today. One of the biggest challenges we've had is we've gone from a time 8 years ago where we didn't have enough jobs for the number of people that needed them. Now we have just the opposite situation where we have too many jobs and not enough people to fill them. Both are problems. I'd rather have the one that we have today of not having enough people, but that's really where we find ourselves, where thousands of jobs every day are going unfilled because we don't have the skilled labor. So really what we're trying to do is get as many people that aren't in the workforce now prepared in every way that we can to enter those jobs that are currently available and have a productive way of life, really.
Representative, his argument is that this is about jobs. It's filling the demands that we have for the workforce of tomorrow. What's your response?
Sure, you know, I hear from people every day who want a job, who want to work, and certainly what we heard in the hearing on these bills is that there are people out there who are looking for work, but they're looking for family-supporting jobs, jobs that enable them to earn a living, to get off of these programs, and to bring home food and put a roof over their families' heads. And I think that what we've been seeing here in these programs is really a cynical view that uses sort of heavy-handed punishment to push people into jobs that they may or may not be able to keep and that they may or may not be able to support their families on. You know, if we want to address this issue of jobs, we can create these family-supporting jobs and we can provide the supports that people need, but they need access to affordable childcare. They need access to transportation. Those are things that this bill does not address.
Do you think this is punitive in any way? Could it be perceived as punitive?
No, I think actually what's punitive is keeping people reliant on government and not being independent. What we have to do a better job of is giving them the incentive to move off of benefit programs and into work. And I think as Representative Subeck alluded to, most people want to do that naturally. What we have to do is give them the incentive to do that, find the way to connect them to the training that they need to get those jobs that are available. And that's what we're trying to accomplish in all this.
Is there anything in this package of bills that you could support? Do you think there's any good in that?
You know, what I think gets missed here is that most people who are able to work on food stamps actually are working. The majority of the food stamp population is people who are elderly, who are disabled, or who are children. But among those who are not elderly, disabled, or children, the majority of them are working. The majority of those families have at least one adult family member who is going to work every day and they can't afford to put food on their tables. We have a bigger problem that needs to be addressed, and it's not about the small group of folks on food stamps. It is about people in this state who are working hard every day and are still living paycheck to paycheck and still need this extra help in order to make ends meet, and these bills are punitive. If people don't meet really specific requirements that the government sets for them, they'll be kicked off these programs. And that is not fair. This is our basic safety net, and we cannot afford to erode it.
Are there other ways of addressing this, Representative, than the way you're going at it right now?
Yeah, well, I mean, what's really a shame is that so many people feel stuck in those lower wage jobs because those family supporting jobs are available throughout the state. In almost every corner of the state, those family supporting jobs are going unfilled right now. So if we really want to be compassionate to people that are in that situation, we find that we give them a way to get to those higher wage jobs. And that's what we're doing, not only in this package, but in what we've done over the course of the last 7 years is providing more incentives to get training. The drug testing is more, it's not about being punitive, it's about finding the treatment that people need to get the jobs, because if they're on drugs and they can't pass drug tests, they can't get jobs.
You look like you were eager to respond to that.
Yeah, I mean, what we heard in the hearing, we had experts come and testify, the advocates who work with these folks. We had folks who are impacted by these programs, who are on these programs, come and testify. And what we heard is they're not getting the training that they need, and that is exactly the problem. These bills just push more people into those same programs that are failing them. We had 80,000 people go through that FSET program that this expands without finding employment and getting kicked off food stamps at the end of that. That's not a program that's succeeding.
Well, let's remember, 28,000 people did find jobs through that program, and I think that's important to highlight. 28,000 more people are working because of that program than were before, so we got to focus on successes as well. But I agree. We have to do, as a state, we have to do a better job of making sure those people that are in those lower wage jobs know how to get to the higher wage jobs.
I want to put this in a slightly different context, and that's the political context. I've looked at a lot of polling on the subject of welfare reform, and it polls very well. People seem to like some of the things we've talked about today, they would support. Is that a problem area for Democrats when you're trying to make the case this is not the right direction we need to be moving in? The fact that a lot of people seem to support these kinds of measures.
People hear the word welfare reform and it sounds good. The devil's in the details. These bills are not welfare reform. Governor Walker can call it that. Republicans can call it that. The reality is, reform would imply that we make it. I think it's punitive. It's programs that don't work. Yeah, I got all kinds of names for that. But seriously, these are. We know what works and what doesn't. The evidence is out there, and this isn't what works. Punishing people. Kicking people off of their food stamps or out of their housing because they're failing to succeed at getting adequate employment is not what works. This is not reform. In many ways, I guess you could call it welfare deform. You're making it harder for people. I would point out Representative Steineke, I almost promoted you there, mentioned the 25,000 people or 28,000 people who received jobs through the FSET program. Here's the thing. 80,000 people left that program failing to achieve employment. I've worked in programs that help people, and any program that had a 25% rate didn't get funding, and certainly not to the tune of the more than $300 million that we have been told this package of bills is going to cost the state.
Yeah, and I've got to ask you this final question, because I did mention the political aspect of this, and there are people out there who suggest this package of welfare reform legislation is meeting a political need for Republicans rather than a policy need, that this does play well with certain people in the party and you're trying to energize them in an election year. What do you say to that?
I think anything that's common sense probably plays well with the public, and that's what we're doing here, is trying to provide people the incentives to move off of benefits and into work. Politics may be good, but that's because the policy is good, quite honestly.
I'm going to have to wrap things up. I wish we had more time to talk about this, but thanks to both of you, Representative Jim Steineke, Representative Lisa Subeck. We appreciate your time today. Thanks very much for being with us. Coming up later on up front, how much water Foxconn will take from Lake Michigan and questions of quality and quantity. But first, Milwaukee Police Chief Ed Flynn retiring after a decade leading the state's largest police department. I'll be talking with him about his career, his accomplishments, and his regrets. That's next on Up Front.
Up Front with Mike Goucher, brought to you by the American Transmission Company.